at the differences of how we celebrate things versus how they celebrate, right? Like, our celebration is how much more time can we spend with our family. Abdul Salam Science Fair, and it's truly to encourage more and more youth to bring their ideas forth, to bring their discoveries forth.
It's all about promoting peace, post-interfaith happiness, and interfaith understanding.
Another one very interesting, Kali Billi. Where is that one?
Somebody tweeted like how much money you guys are getting. So
we're getting paid per show. It depends how many sponsors we get. Actually.
We had the Coca-Cola board.
Oh, we had it somewhere. Oh, yeah. We can't say that.
I think another tweet that.
We've heard the term biological clock. I'm sure all of you might have heard that. It's a commonly used term, and it's meant to make us aware that there is a right time for everything.
We're going to be showing some of those pictures on this screen right behind us. These were sent in from some of our Twitter followers.
It is important that you first reform yourselves. If you become righteous and virtuous, then have faith that Allah will treat your progeny in good manner.
دنیاوی باتوں میں نقل کرتے ہیں اور اس کے حصول کے لیے یا تو عزت نفس کو داؤ پر لگا دیتے ہیں یا دیوالیہ ہو کر اپنی جائیداد سے ہاتھ دھو بیٹھتے ہیں. یعنی دنیاوی باتوں کی نقل میں فائدے کم اور نقصان زیادہ ہیں، لیکن دین کے معاملے میں نقل اور ویسا بننے کی کوشش جیسا حضرت مسیح موعود علیہ السلام نے ہمارے سامنے اس زمانے میں نمونہ پیش فرمایا ہے، بلکہ ہم میں سے بہت سو نے ان صحابہ کو بھی دیکھا ہوا ہے جنہوں نے قرب الہی کے نمونے قائم کیے. ان کی نقل کی کوشش ہم نہیں کرتے، جبکہ نقصان کا تو یہاں سوال ہی پیدا نہیں ہوتا، بلکہ فائدہ ہی فائدہ ہے، اور فائدہ بھی ایسا ہے جس کو کسی پیمانے سے ناپا نہیں جا سکتا. بس کیا وجہ ہے کہ ہم اس نقل کی کوشش نہیں کرتے جو نیکیوں میں بڑھانے والی چیز کی نقل ہے؟ صاف ظاہر ہے کہ یا تو ہمیں ان چیزوں کا بالکل ہی علم نہیں دیا جاتا جس کی وجہ سے احساس پیدا نہیں ہوتا، یا اتنا تھوڑا علم اور اتنے عرصے بعد دیا جاتا ہے کہ ہم بھول جاتے ہیں کہ خدا تعالیٰ اپنے تازہ بتازہ نشانات آج بھی دکھا رہا ہے. نتیجتاً ہماری اس طرف توجہ نہ ہونے کے برابر ہوتی ہے، جبکہ دنیاوی چیزوں کے لیے ہم آتے جاتے ٹی وی پر، اخبارات پر 10 مرتبہ اشتہار دیکھتے ہیں اور دماغ میں بات بیٹھ جاتی ہے کہ میں نے کسی نہ کسی ذریعے سے یہ چیز لینی ہے، حاصل کرنی ہے. اور اگر کسی کو سمجھایا جائے یا کوئی ویسے ہی کہہ دے کہ اس چیز کی تمہیں کیا ضرورت ہے جب وسائل نہیں ہیں، تو فوراً جواب ملتا ہے کہ کیا غریب کے جذبات نہیں ہوتے؟ کیا ہمارے جذبات نہیں ہیں؟ کیا ہمارے بچوں کے جذبات نہیں ہیں کہ ہمارے پاس یہ چیز ہو؟ لیکن یہ جذبات کبھی اس بات کے لیے نہیں ابھرتے کہ الہامات کا تذکرہ سن کر یہ خواہش پیدا ہو کہ ہمارے سے بھی کبھی خدا تعالیٰ کلام کرے، ہمارے لیے بھی خدا تعالیٰ نشانات دکھائے. और अपनी मोहब्बत से हमें नवाजे।
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Aperture. This is the start of season 2. It's our first episode of season 2. If you are somebody who has been with us since season 1, Jazakallah for coming back. And if you're watching the show for the first time, hope you enjoy it. The show really is an interactive one. It's a show where we use our audience and viewers watching from all around the world and giving them the ability to be able to ask their questions, voice their concerns, and more importantly, be part of the conversation. Today's topic, which we're looking at, is named Fair and Lovely. Truly looking into the complexities of inferiority complex. What is inferiority complex? How real of a problem is it for youth, whether they are here in Canada, United States, parts of Europe or Asia, and how prevalent is it still today, and how much of a role or an impact it plays in the lives of youth growing up. With me today are some new faces and a really well-known face. We have to my right as well, so I will introduce each person starting from my right. To my immediate right, we have Haris Mahmood Saab, who's a young professional who will add some contributing points based on his perspectives and some of the observations that he's had. To his immediate right, we have a well-known personality. We have Murabbi Saab Farhan Iqbal Sahib. And to his immediate right, we have a university student who's very active with AMSA, Marij Rana Sahib. Assalamu alaikum to you all. And straight away we're gonna get into the topic. As we talk about inferiority complex, there's a big sense of youth being extremely, sometimes overtly concerned with their appearance, the way they look. They start their day off by making sure that they're up to a certain image, which to a certain degree is a good thing. You want to look well presentable, but we do see examples day in, day out of sometimes it being over the board. So Murabbi Saab, I would like for you to...
It's a big subject. It's something that affects people everywhere, not just here. But since we are a minority, we feel the impact of this. And Hazur also in his clip that was just shown was also mentioning how some people have this desire to be like others. And if somebody buys something, a gadget, or somebody wears a certain types of clothes, and you want to be like him or her, and that's where that's what we want to talk about today, in terms of our identity and how we are impacted because we are a minority.
Right, and an interesting thing that you touched up is taking the influence from other, and obviously it just so happened that Hazur talked about it in his khutbah this morning. And also you talked about appearance. We see that whether it's on a magazine cover, a TV show, or just the culture around us, that fashion plays a pretty big role into how you want to upkeep your image. Marij, I want to come to you, talking about fashion. Not that I'm singling you out.
Is it a good thing?
Yes, I think it's a pretty good thing, in case you're fetching for a compliment. But I want to bring that topic to you. How important is it, first of all, to you?
To me, it is important to a certain extent because it is how people view me, and they get their first impression of me from my fashion sense. But at that same time, I have to remember that I'm an Ahmadi Muslim, and that also should play a role in the type of fashion that I want to present on myself, right? So if there's a fashion that's extremely against my values as an Ahmadi, then obviously I should put my priorities towards my faith rather than I go for the fashion. So if there is some absurd fashion, then I shouldn't directly go towards that. I should look at, okay, is this going with the image that I want to present, that I'm an Ahmadi Muslim? So I think that plays a role. Is you got to prioritize that. Is your fashion more important, or is your faith, religion more important. Before
Interesting
religion
point. It's a slippery slope because
Right.
where do you draw the line?
Right.
You know, we often see that, you know, and again, you leave it up to the youth and they'll find every excuse in the book to justify whether they're, you know, what the way they behave or what they're wearing. But I think especially their behavior, you know, sometimes it's questionable, but there's a justification for it. Hadis, if you know, I want to come to you about, you know, the specific types of behaviors that we see, especially in the upcoming generation.
Of course, one of the problems that I've noticed is, in fact, media in itself really presents or does a lot of post-process work to the work that they present to the community itself. By profession, I'm actually a designer as well, and so I'm always, you know, up to date with all the new design trends and whatnot. And there was actually a statistic that I recently read a few weeks back that it's approximately 97 to 98% of every image that is created for the media is photoshopped. So, and the argument that, you know, these companies have for, you know, photoshopping beyond a certain point, you know, they like to say that, you know, we expect the users or viewers to know that this stuff is photoshopped or this stuff may not be, you know, portraying what reality may be. But unfortunately, that is not the case. The majority of the youth today sees this stuff at face value and assumes that this is what, you know, is considered to be beautiful, considered to be attractive, considered to be, you know, what they have to try and mimic to the best of their abilities to be considered attractive or cool or wanted by their other peers and friends as well.
Right, and just because we're talking about fashion, I want to clear up for the audience. You said you're a designer, you're a graphic designer, not a fashion designer.
Yes, graphic designer.
So just for the record, graphic designer, not fashion. So what do you think about that? You're obviously around these kids, all spend a lot of time with them.
I totally agree. I think I can talk about myself here, that even when I looked at magazines or even the television or whatever, different sources of media, and you would see this as a young person, you wouldn't know that it has been photoshopped or something, right? You would take it as at face value, and you would automatically think that this is beautiful and this is attractive and this is what you should become. And you know, and I think this is taken to the extreme, because especially what motivates this whole machinery, quote unquote, to work is money, you know, which drives it forward.
Right, and you know what? Those looks and appearance, you know, like as they say, don't let the looks fool you. You know, I think that there's a certain sense where we need to constantly remind especially ourselves, that, you know, as they say, beauty is only skin deep. So can be looks and appearance, right? Looks can be deceiving, but unfortunately, when you know, especially when you're a youth and you're with your family at a grocery store checkout, and there's, you know, there's magazines that have been laid out with you with what you're told as these are beautiful people. Sometimes it's even labeled like 2013's most beautiful people, right? With perfectly photoshopped pictures. I think that it's only normal that a 13, 14, 15-year-old even looks at that and goes, I want to look like that.
Right. And that's what we're talking about, right? Identity, and where do we draw the line in terms of these things, all these things that we face? There's also a phenomenon, it's called culture shock, right? That happens to a lot of our children when they come here and they see a whole different world and they want to just fit in. You know, there's peer pressure and all those things, and so, you know, they sometimes lose their identity when they do that.
So the important thing, I think, is that the interplay between behavior and your fashion sense. That is your fashion sense so extreme that it's beginning to affect your behavior in a negative way. That shouldn't be the case. That I think you should have the opposite, that your fashion sense should bring about positive behavior in you, bring about more confidence in you, because if you're confident in the way you present yourself and the way you feel, then other things that you also bring in, such as matters of faith or school work as well, you bring about the same confidence. So I think that also plays a difference, that the interplay between your fashion sense and your behavior all tied in make up your identity. So once you have that going for you, that is essentially who you are.
Like I've also noticed that for the younger kids especially, fashion isn't something that they normally end up doing for themselves, but it's more so for, you know, what are other people going to think of me if I dress in a certain manner or if I look a certain way. I remember I was at a friend's house recently, and his younger sister was really upset or freaking out because only 14 people had liked her picture on Instagram. You know, the concept that that was what was worrying her the most that day is ridiculous. That should not be the focus of children today, or anyone for that matter, of what other people think of them when it comes to fashion.
So that's inferiority complex.
Absolutely, and I think social media is as popular as they've become, they're fueling that, right? I don't think that there's actually a social media out there, and especially for some of our viewers that are watching this show, chances are more than likely you are watching it through Twitter and getting a link to be able to view this. But they all have a consistent value to be able to give, whether you tweet, you put up a picture, to give the viewers an ability to like it. And how much of that plays into your psyche, whether you send out a tweet and with hoping that it catches a lot of people's attention. So it's that constant need to seek attention.
Right.
It does, without a doubt, must play into your psyche as a human being.
Yeah. I think one thing that from the Islamic perspective that we need to understand, and I mentioned it before in the previous season, in one or two episodes, the Holy Quran says, for instance, Kulu washrabu wala tusrifu. Eat and drink, but do not exceed the bounds. Innahu la yuhibbul musrifin. Allah does not like those who exceed the bounds. And what that means is that Islam is all about the middle path. Don't take any extremes, right? Whether too little or too much, right? So there's an inferiority complex, and then there's the superiority complex on the other side. We have to find the middle path in all of this.
Right.
I mean, Huzur Anwar spoke about gadgets, but I've seen photographs of him carrying a gadget himself on Twitter.
Right.
So he has drawn the line. He has drawn the line. He has not gone too far in adopting these things and insanely grabbing every next model of a gadget that comes or every new trend that comes in. Right. You see what I'm trying to say here?
Absolutely. There's a term for it, bandwagon fans, right? Whichever the next big trend is, I want to make sure, especially that term is frequently used for when you always like the team that's always winning, right? And as soon as your team starts losing, and it goes to show where there's a lack of chosen identity. Another thing that I do want to mention for some of our viewers at home that are watching, as mentioned earlier, the show is interactive, so you can send in your comments. We have been getting a lot of comments. Actually, we've been started getting a lot of comments early. I know we save a segment for the latter end of the show where we answer some of the questions, and we will come to that. But I do want to include some of the very interesting comments, and one that came in that really struck a chord with me was it's from at AGITOPIA, and it says use of social media. There's a terminology associated with it, which is called FOMO, FOMO, fear of missing out, right? Which to a certain degree does play into that. Nobody wants to feel like they're missing out, and what are they really missing out?
I think again, back to the point that I just made, that you have to find the right balance. Sure, we all have curiosities of certain things. We all want the latest models of things and the best type of clothes and everything. But what we are trying to give you, the message that we are trying to give our audience, is that you make the choice based on your identity, not based on other people's identities, not just following the crowd kind of mentality, right? Sure, if you don't want to miss out on Twitter and other things, you can engage, but there has to be a limit, and that's what Huzur Anwar has spoken about throughout the year in different sermons as well. That you have to set the limit, right?
And I think there's been quite clear. I think you touched up on there's got to be a limit in your fashion. There's got to be a limit on your social media, and I think that those have to be self-monitored limits where you got to draw the line, and when people see that, they will then follow that trend too. Right? Why not be a trendsetter? Why not be ahead of the pack and amongst your peers be the one that can set those trends and lead by example? I think a very interesting tweet that came in from a same person, and I think it's a really good one, and he speaks to his approach on social media, which is my approach is tweet when you want to be humorous, show love to people, show that you do care, and follow your trail back to Islam, right? At the end of the day, just next task.
Right, and there's a verse of the Holy Quran, I'm just reminded by this tweet as well, where Allah says, Allah Ta'ala lists the different qualities of believers. Allah says, قَدْ أَفْلَحَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ, that believers are those who have prospered, and then he says, وَالَّذِينَ هُمْ عَنِ اللَّغْوِ مُعْرِضُونَ, they are those who refrain from doing anything vain, right? So, engagement in all these things is okay, but after a certain point, it becomes vain. It's not getting you, it's just waste of time, right? So you have to make the decision when it becomes vain for you.
Right.
So much so that I think that your self-worth shouldn't be based upon, like you mentioned, gadgets. It shouldn't be that who you are as a person is that, right? It should always be secondary. Your self-worth should be that, okay, my self-worth is that I'm a Muslim, and not that this is my fashion sense. My worth isn't because that I wear expensive jeans or I wear expensive shirts or anything like that, or I have expensive gadgets. My self-worth should be that how am I progressing in my spirituality? How much am I focused on my religion? All of this, I think, is secondary. Primary is always your religion.
Right.
That's who you are.
I think it's an interesting point that you brought up, especially how much your pants and shirt are worth.
Yeah.
I think some of the brands have done a very creative marketing job of putting certain brands on the clothing and then telling you that proves your popularity or shows how cool you are because you're wearing that expensive brand and everybody knows it's expensive. There's quite a story if you go back and research Nike when they first started putting those checks on their clothing. It was to let your peers know that this is what you're wearing and for those brands to increase that price. So, and now it's turned into that, where some of the most expensive brands, they make a clear job of labeling their clothing accordingly. And that does definitely tie into, whether you like it or not, must play into your psyche.
Definitely. We all go shopping and you notice that you'll find practically the exact same polo shirt or dress shirt in multiple stores, but the price tag is completely different just because it may have a tiny little logo of that company on the front.
Right.
It's probably made in the same factory of Bangladesh, right?
Exactly, yeah.
No, matter of fact, it's made of the same material. It's just got a little alligator, and we're going to charge you double the price.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, some people still buy that.
This reminds me of that when iPods first came out, the way to, because your iPod was always in your pocket, the way to signify, and when iPods first came out, they were like $500, $600, the fat ones. So the way to signify that you own an iPod is that you would have the earplugs coming out of your shirt, and you would have the iPod in your pocket. So to signify that you own an iPod would be that you have the earplugs hanging out. So what people started doing was they wouldn't even have the iPod. They would just have the earplugs, and people would think that, oh, you own an iPod, so you must have like $500 and $600 to spend on an iPod. So let's just give out the earplugs. So yeah, that's exactly what it is. That your worth shouldn't be that.
Very, very interesting. And another really interesting tweet that came in is here we go. By the way, I've actually been given one of the Aperture devices, so I'm able to actually get some of the tweets as they're coming in real time. Very interesting one. It's from @Hanya M_. It says, no piece of clothing made by small hands of children in garment factory will ever be beautiful or attractive. And I think that that's not. I mean, it's more prevalent today than it's ever been. Sweatshop wasn't really a discussion before, but it goes to show how big and powerful some of these companies have become. First brain feeding us this fashion sense, then though this clothing is worth a lot, but telling us what the expensive items are and what isn't.
And moving away from this, also I watched a documentary once on CBC, and there's this person who did some research on a company that feeds the same concept, but in terms of whiteness of your skin, right? And the whiter you are, the more beautiful you are. And how certain companies actually exploit this thing to promote certain products, right? Especially in those countries where people are not white, most of them. So
Right.
it's also it ties into this as well. I think
Right.
that how the color of your skin is also
Right, and then they use celebrities to reinforce their
Exactly.
message
Exactly.
that this celebrity is good looking and famous because of the fact that they use this cream,
Right.
or they don't have acne because they use this cream, and
Right.
and telling the youth who really follow that specific celebrity that I have to be in line with that.
Right, and that's also because of the identity issue, right? And from an Islamic perspective, like Maharaj just mentioned, your religion should be the priority. As Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam has stated, that our slogan should be, in a sense, کہ میں دین کو دنیا پر مقدم رکھوں گا, right? That I will give precedence to my faith over all worldly affairs. And that's what you should do. That's our identity, our religion. Cultural things, things that we do in Canada, the things that we do in US, the things that we do in other countries, it's secondary. The primary thing that makes us who we are is our faith, is our connection with God. Right?
Jazakallah. With that said, we're gonna, as we swiftly move on to the next part of the episode, where we will look at what are some of the solutions, both what does Islam prescribe in terms of practices and habits that should be instilled in yourself. We do have a short clip of a few young khuddam who decided to take a journey during the recent holiday season. We'll break into that, and they'll be showing what they did in their spare time, and what you can do to be able to overcome any complexity you may have by being amongst your Muslim peers.
हैं बादा मस्त बादा आशा में अहमदियत चलता है दौर मीना ओ जाम अहमदियत हैं बादा मस्त बादा आशा में अहमदियत चलता है दौर मीना ओ जाम अहमदियत तिश्ना लबों की खातिर तिश्ना लबों की खातिर हर समत घूमते हैं थामे हुए सुबुए गुल्फा में अहमदियत खुदा 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 में अहमदियत जब दहरियत के दम से मसमूम थी फिजाएं फूटी थी जा बजा जब इल्हाद की वबाएं तब आया एक मुनादी और हर तरफ सदा दी आओ के इनकी जद से इस्लाम को बचाएं आओ कि इनकी जद से इस्लाम को बचाएं जोरे दुआ दिखाएं खुदा में अहमदियत 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 फिर बाग़ मुस्तफ़ा का ध्यान आया ज़ुल्म नन को सींचा फिर आंसुओं से अहमद ने इस चमन को आहों का था बुलावा फूलों की अंजुमन को और खींच लाए नाले मुर्गान खुश लहन को लौटाए फिर वतन को खुदा में अहमदियत 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 चमका फिर आसमाने मशरिक पे नाम अहमद मगरिब में जगमगाया माहे तमाम अहमद वहमो गुमा से बाला वहमो गुमा से बाला आली मुकाम अहमद हम हैं गुलाम खाके पाए गुलाम अहमद हम हैं गुलाम खाके पाए गुलाम अहमद मुर्गान दाम अहमद मुर्गान दाम अहमद खुदा में अहमदियत खुदा में अहमदियत.
Well, actually, the reason why, yeah.
I realized that, and that's what I said, like happy study and like lots of money which you study and everything,
Thank you. That's something we learned from our religion.
Right.
We became this way because of our religion.
Yeah.
अपना तबलीग अहमदियत तबलीग अहमदियत दुनिया में काम अपना दारुल अमल है गोया आलम तमाम अपना दारुल अमल है गोया आलम तमाम अपना पूछो
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back. We hope that you enjoyed that clip that some of the team had put together. It was a trip that was taken by some of the khuddam, and really they just wanted to make keeping in line with our identity and who we are. The message is, yes, you can go out and you can have fun, but you have to keep your prayers in line. You have to still do your 5 daily prayers. And this was a trip that was taken, which was really interesting, where you might have actually even seen at one point in the video, there was an elderly lady that came to the group and asked, why are you guys sitting here because it was a little bit later in the evening that everybody else is out drinking and making noise, and you guys are sitting here by the fire. Who are you guys? And she was truly almost confused. And she said, look, I'm from Czech Republic. I've been all over Europe. I now live in Canada. We travel all the time. We've never seen guys your age at this time just sitting here around the fire and talking amongst yourself. And for us, it was obviously a really, really good experience as well to be there and obviously have just a stranger come over and ask us. So it was obviously it was interesting to see that culture shock.
Right.
It is a culture shock, and for this segment of the show, we're going to talk about identity and more specifically Muslim identity. As Ahmadi Muslims, we have certain set of responsibilities and an image to uphold.
Right. I mean, like we were talking about brands and those other things. We're not condemning anything in general. You can wear good brands. That's fine. But what we're trying to say is that not at the expense of your identity. Right. Your identity should be intact. Your activities, are there that can be part of your identity. Right. But don't do anything that diminishes that. Right.
And it all ties in, another point to add is the confidence that you bring about your identity. Like whatever image that you have of yourself or whatever way you present yourself, it's not so much what it is, it's what you do with it and the confidence that you bring about with it. You could be dressed up in like a bright red suit, but if you're confident about this bright red suit, then people are going to look at you and they're going to be like, wow, like there must be something about that bright red suit that this guy is bringing about.
Or shalwar kameez, right?
Or shalwar kameez,
You know,
right?
I have colleagues, missionaries and Jammat students. They don't have a problem. They go to Vaughan Mills or any other place and they are wearing shalwar kameez. It's what is inside. It's their identity and how confident they are. And you know, confidence ties in with something that we call ghairat in Urdu. I don't know what's the best word for it in English, but confidence comes close to it. That have ghairat for who you are, for your religion, for your faith, for your background. Have trust that it was a good background. It's a good religion that we are following, and it doesn't matter. The rest of the things don't matter, right?
I think when the confidence diminishes and you're questioning your own self-esteem or your own self-worth, that's I think when other individuals take advantage of that, and that's I think when we face more problems, and especially the youth. When they don't have confidence in something, then they're opening themselves up to anything. And then you're just prone to attacks.
Right.
And that's when you will get attacked.
As I say, when you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
Yeah.
Right? And that's absolutely true. When you don't have the confidence, you'll follow any trend. Yeah. You'll follow any group, even at your school, high school, elementary school, university, that is doing something cool and they're popular for that reason. Maybe said what you were saying earlier. There was a wonderful tweet that speaks very much in line to that from @Tosif Ahmed. It says the fact that if your pious light, noor, appears on your face and in your habits,
right.
and I think that's again comes back to your self-worth of just constantly reminding yourself of that it's not what you're wearing but what's inside.
Right, and also, there's at the time of the Holy Prophet ﷺ, there were some Sahaba who were very rich, and there's a verse of the Holy Quran that says, "Wa'amma bi'ni'mati rabbika fahaddis," that when Allah provides you blessings, then it should be shown to other people. Don't be so niggardly. If you have money, spend it, and don't be so niggardly.
Right.
And I want to just wear something that is not so good. If you have the money, you should spend it, and that's how you should look like you are rich and show off the blessings of Allah. So it's just how we think about it, and it comes back to the confidence that we have, and what kind of attitude we have, is that, and what our priorities are. And our priority, if it's faith, if it's thankfulness to Allah, if it's about building a relationship with Allah, then everything else doesn't matter, right?
And I think it's also the personality traits or the characteristics that come along with being an Ahmadi Muslim that we should be proud of as well. And I feel like sometimes people are a little bit scared or hesitant, what are other people going to think of those things?
Yeah.
Whereas that's not the case at all.
Right.
For example, at my workplace, I'm actually one of the only Muslims on the entire floor of 50 or 60 people, and everyone, likes to ask me questions about, whether I drink, whether I do this or do that, and the answers I give them are completely unexpected, and they're not, upset or confused by them. They're actually impressed. They're like, "So you've never had alcohol before?"
Right.
And I say, "Yes, that's, not something strange for me." But they don't say, "Oh, you're missing out." They say, "Wow, that's very, very impressive." Yeah. They wish that they had the self-control that we have been brought up with to prevent us from doing stuff like that.
Right, so we should be confident in
Absolutely.
those times and not try to hide who we are. I mean, even having a beard or those kind of things that makes us Ahmadi Muslims, right? The Muslim identity.
Right, and I think we also live, well, at least for us that live in North America and various parts of Europe, it's a real challenge.
Right.
Upholding the Muslim identity. It's easy to say, well, Muslims have done it to themselves. And yes, that may be prevalent to a certain degree, but the fact that it's not easy upholding the Muslim identity at times. As a guy who has a beard and I treat my beard as that's my hijab. But having to explain that to somebody and using words like that can be frightening in our culture. Unfortunately, due to Islam, us Muslims, we're considered backwards people at times due to some of our tradition, especially the one that you talked about with alcohol. Our company just had recently a massive new launch, and to celebrate it, they said there's lunch on us, and the entire team came together. But for beverages, they only had alcoholic beverages. and I came up and I said, wait, well, where's the regular? And they said, did you not get the email? This is a celebration, right? and what kind of celebration are you planning on having? And and that goes to show how much they've convinced themselves, and this is during regular company hours, this is not an after hour thing, right? That it's such a social norm. So, but we're, not only does that not in line with our values, but it's a massive cultural shock for anybody to come in, because we're a culture shock to them as much as they're a culture shock to us.
Right.
And I'm sure there's something.
And so, what are the ways that we can maintain our identity? There are a number of things we can do.
Right.
We have, for example, auxiliary organizations. We have Khudam al-Ahmadiyya, Lajna Imail, Atfal al-Ahmadiyya, engaging in activities with those people who are part of the same organization. That helps us develop and get more confidence in ourselves, in our identities. So that's something we can do. Coming to the masjid, coming to the mosque more often is also would be something that would help us maintain.
And another thing, which I think is in line with the Quran as well, that the friends that you keep also makes a huge difference.
Right.
You should have like-minded friends. If you have friends that are always going out partying and drinking, then you're going to feel weaker by your own accord, right? But at the same time, you could also put in the argument that you need to show confidence and help them change. But not everyone is at that state. So sometimes you need friends that are like-minded, that are not going to be going out for drinking, and they're going to be doing the same things that you're doing. So it's easier to relate with them.
The Quran says, "Kunu ma'a sadiqeen." Be with those who are righteous and truthful, and who have a good relationship with Allah, and it will influence you to develop a good relationship as well.
Right. Especially when Hazur made these auxiliary organizations, he said they're broken in that age group so you can be with them.
Right.
But the key word is being with them. Spending time with them. Yes, we live in a culture and a society where we are a minority. You may belong to a Jammat where there's only a few Ahmadis and maybe none that are your age, but being with them and clinging on to your community is absolutely important, because your thoughts, your ideas once you start sharing them with people that don't share the same set of values as you, it will over time influence you.
Right, and one example is of this uncle I know. He's from Sudbury, right? And there's no Ahmadi there. He has built a relationship with the Khalifatul Masih. Why not? Why not build a relationship with him? Why not write letters to him? That will help you develop your identity. Why not have MTA in your home and watch the sermons of Hazur and other programs and activities? Especially just watching Hazur live for a Friday sermon is something that helps you connect with him, because you're sitting there listening to him and he's talking to you. And that can help us build our identity too, I think. Yeah.
Absolutely, and fortunately, at least for some of us, myself included, I was actually having this discussion with somebody earlier today. I think we're fortunate enough, at least being on this time zone. We are on Eastern Standard Time. So Hazur's Friday sermon comes live right at 7:15 in the morning, right when I leave for work. So I can put on my headphones and start my Friday, and it ends right at 8:50, 10 minutes before I start work.
Right. It starts at 7:55.
Right.
Right, 8 o'clock.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So that's exactly my morning commute.
Exactly.
And really speaking to what is our goal, what are we striving for, what's our mission? I think the interesting thing is, yes, this show is powered by social media, and social media is often associated, it's a quick way to get your message out. It's the most powerful tool to get your message out to the millions. But if you think about it, we invented one of the most powerful social medias before people even knew the term social media. MTA.
Right.
Where Hazur can reach out to millions in a matter on your mobile, your phone, in the matter of seconds.
Right.
And the message can, it's the blessings.
And we had the first, the alislam.org is one of the first Muslim websites, right? And it's gotten so huge now.
Right.
I remember back in the late 90s, we used to, we were in Malaysia at that time, and we used to connect via internet, via alislam.org, and watch Hazur's sermons, and it was so amazing at that time.
I still remember the first time I got to watch MTA on my computer.
Right.
The entire family got together. It was really cool to see a keyboard and a screen and to see Hazur on it. Because really in the end, as we conclude, just want to share some of our thoughts on what's our mission in this entire piece. Where do we, us as Ahmadi Muslim youth, fit in, and tips that you can share?
I've already shared a few points. Just like I mentioned earlier as well, that Hazrat Masih Maud alayhi salatu wasalam has taught us that we should have our priorities straight. I shall keep my faith. I shall give my precedence to my faith over all worldly affairs. This is a slogan of the Jammat, which we should all remember and remind ourselves from time to time that faith is the most important thing, and all these other worldly things come after that. And sure, you can buy those brands, you can get those gadgets, but don't ever forget your roots and where you come from, right? And don't ever forget your religion and your faith.
Right. In conclusion, guys, as we wrap it up, typically with every episode that we do, we take Twitter questions. This was one of those topics where we got a lot more Twitter comments, and which makes sense why there aren't that many questions. I think it's a topic that we do all unanimously understand. We realize that that it is a true challenge, and I want to read out some of those comments. And an interesting one was again from @AGITOPIA, and it says, "Make Hazur your friend." Right, the incident that you told. It's all having that relationship. It can really help you make the right choices. Another one, which was a really good one, is from the same person. It says it's all about drawing people to the fold of Islam and Ahmadiyyat. Sometimes you just have to forget clothing and have a big smile, and it goes a long way is enough. Another one is fashion which reveals modesty not only makes you look unique, but also opens path for tabligh. Again, a very good one from @SKCHIM896. Another one from @Akhan489. Courage is contagious. Even if a few of us try and break this inferiority complex, others will follow. I know before the show started, we spoke about that. It just takes one person to take charge. It takes one episode of a show like this to really make a big movement. Another one is, let's remember that Islam isn't a Pakistani traditional clothing. We have to embrace the diversity of where we live while keeping within the traditions of Islam. I can keep going on and on, but I'm also getting cues from my studio here telling me that we have to wrap things up. So I will pick my last few. One is we should. It's from Adnan Alim. It says start up a Aperture branded shalwar kameez. We might have gear for you guys. I highly doubt we actually will. But that's funny. And the other one is, it comes in from, I'm going to try to pronounce this. This is coming in from Bilawal Aleem, and it says that you guys are gleaming. How many of the panelists use Fair and Lovely cream?
None.
He claims he doesn't. But with that said, guys, we have one final video for you guys, and then we'll end this episode at that. Jazakallah for spending the time with us. Jazakallah for all your funny, humorous tweets. And look out for the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
But I want to ask you one thing. Why have you become Ahmadis? Why have you left your family? Why have you left your old religion? What benefit did you get? If you have not become a better human being, if you have not become a better husband or a better wife or a better citizen, as Imam Sahib delivered his Friday sermon today, if you have not become a more peaceful person in your business, in your dealing with people, then what is the use of becoming an Ahmadi? Why should you lose your family and all your tribe and everything, and people laugh at you and joke at you and persecute you and they hate you, and then you don't get any benefit? If you have become an Ahmadi, there must be a change in you. You must have a relationship with God the Almighty. People say, if I become an Ahmadi, what will I get? We say you will have a connection with Allah Ta'ala. You will have a rendezvous, you will have a docking with Allah Ta'ala. He will listen to your prayers. Maybe He will even talk to you. So without a relationship with God the Almighty, this life is useless. Hazrat Masih Maud in one of his Urdu poems, which you might not understand, Kya zindagi ka zauq agar wo nahi mila? What is the pleasure of this life if you do not have a relationship with God? Lanat hai aise jeene pe, agar usse hai juda. Let the curse of God be upon that life which is without any connection with God. So when you have become an Ahmadi, your objective should be that you have a connection with God. He listens to you. He accepts your prayers. He is waiting for you to talk to Him. Why don't you knock His door? So you have become an Ahmadi, you have paid a price. Look, you go to a place, you buy you pay your currency and you get something. You have paid a price. I have paid a price. I want to know what I got. If I have got no connection with God the Almighty, then it's not a good bargain. It's losses. So you come from Tiloni, or you come from any other place, or you come from any village, or we have a new Ahmadi who just became an Ahmadi this afternoon. You must find out that have you become a better person? Each night you sleep, you should think for 2 minutes, have I become a better human being? Am I a better human being? Does God listen to my prayers? That is the criteria, these are the credentials which will show you whether you made a right choice or not.